Step 5, center leg assembly and mounting it to the body. Before we begin, let's make sure we have all the parts. Let's start with the 3D printed ones. Here we have the center leg shell or cover. We have an ankle. We have the assembled caster wheel to the caster and the caster bracket with the M3 by 20 millimeter screw going through it. We will also need our assembled body. First step is putting these pieces together. We're going to definitely need our number 1 screwdriver here. So let's begin. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the caster bracket and we're going to put it into the shell just like that. Now, at this point, we're going to take the ankle, and if you notice that the ankle has a hole right over here. The best thing to do is to manually screw this in, just a few turns to get it going. Now, if you find it easier or you end up having a larger screwdriver and you need to pop this out, you could always pop it out, screw it, and then put it in after the fact. So you could do that as well. But because we know ours fits, we could get in there and we can now start screwing it closer and closer to the center shell. Now, as we get closer, we want to position this. Because believe it or not, while it looks like it's equal distant, there is a right way and a wrong way of putting the ankle on here. So, here, for example, I'm going to take this off for the time being, just to simulate the idea of what I was referring to in terms of getting easier access. And so, over here, you'll notice that it doesn't kind of quite reach the other edge of the shell, of the center shell. So you kind of want to flip it around so that it does make its way and hugs nicely the edge of the center shell, just like that. See? Again, this side didn't quite make it. But if we flipped it around, it makes it perfectly. And so once you have that positioned, go ahead and press down and now start screwing in the M3 by 20 millimeter further in until you get to the very end. You'll know that you reach the end because these two will be nice and snug and tight. You shouldn't have these wiggling or wobbling around. That's how you'll know that everything is good to go. Now at this point, you could put this back in and you could put in your caster with the wheel attached and you just shove it right in there. If it doesn't fit in there, again, there are different tolerances when you're 3D printing. You could always take some sanding paper and kind of go around the shaft of the caster and then just kind of smooth it down so it fits within the ball bearing. So now the next step is to assemble this onto the body. And the way that you're going to do that is just like that. So you see those like two kind of circular pieces right here and here? That's got to be kind of facing outwards. And you're going to put it right into that notch located right there. Now for this step, we're going to need an M3 by 20 millimeter screw. And the way that we're going to use this is we're going to actually send it through the bottom there, and it's going to come out the other side, and then we're going to screw it into this hole. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, and so sometimes, depending on the age of the student or the person who's doing this assembly, you might want to just put some glue there and put it on and call it a day. You could even, in fact, go ahead and put plumbing tape, but it won't be as good as glue if you're going to decide to glue it. So this one I would actually lean towards putting glue on if you need it to be a little bit easier. But if you want to be pure mechanical, my recommendation is to first take your screw like this and puncture the bottom. The reason for this is that on the bottom of the 3D print, it kind of tends to cover the area where the screw has to come through. So the best thing to do is to first puncture it, like so. And then once it's punctured, you're going to go ahead, take this and put it on the tip of the screwdriver, just like that, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to send it right through the bottom. Now that we have our screw sitting on the top of our screwdriver, we are going to aim it to go into that hole. And so I am going to push it right just like that. Now, sometimes you're not going to get it on its first try. I definitely have had, here we go. Okay, so now that we've pushed through that screw right to the other side, you'll notice that it is now poking out the bottom of the body. So at this point, we're now ready to line up our center foot and kind of line it up with the hole that you see right over here. So we're going to go ahead, line it up, and we'll start screwing that screw, that M3 20mm screw, and little by little, it's going to kind of get tighter and tighter and come closer to the center of the body. Okay, and then once it's tight enough, you'll know because it just doesn't give you any give, and it sits nice and perfectly just like that. And that's it. So like I said, there are multiple ways to do this, whether it's by glue, whether it's by screwdriver, and then my least favorite is to use plumbing tape. In the future, there will be modifications done on these files. I do plan on trying to make a compartment or a utility door to try to make this part of the process a little bit simpler. I know it's a little bit trickier than the other steps, but always room for improvement. So stay tuned for updates. Anyway, now you're ready to move on to step number 6.